This is Center Stage, putting lawyers in the spotlight by highlighting attorneys and other industry experts to help take your law firm to the next level.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are talking about something that I feel really strongly about that attorneys should be doing more of, and that is delegating more and learning how to just let things go and not feel like you have to be in control of everything so much. There's so many good ways to delegate some of the, especially the non-legal tasks, but also, as we'll talk about today, some of your actual legal work that you can be delegating. And I am joined by Mr. Garrick Pursley. He is from a company called Denovo Review, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But Garrick, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Good to be with you, John. Thanks for having me. I am the Chief Strategy Officer for Denovo Review and the Director of Denovo Learning. So let me talk a little bit about each of those entities. Denovo Review is a legal staffing company, hence the expertise in delegating. We match vetted legal staff to your projects. Whether you want a little bit of help, you need some extra hands on deck, or you want to scale up with an entire new division. We do sort of everything in between. Denovo Learning is an education and community outreach organization. What we do is we put together educational content and we work with our members to create educational webinars and things like that people will enjoy and give our members an opportunity to reach out to a wider audience and get their message out. Before that, believe it or not, I was a law professor for 10 years at places like the University of Texas and Florida State. And so when I talk in a minute about all the things that we don't teach in law school, I speak from a position of some experience with that.
Right. Yeah. So, and like I mentioned up at the front, I mean, I am all for attorneys delegating things like their bookkeeping, like their marketing, but, especially with your experience and kind of focusing on even delegating some of that legal work. But let's back up a second. Just in general, why do you think lawyers struggle so much with delegating things to begin with?
Well, I mean, delegating is a learned skill. And it's not easy, right? I mean, I think as humans, or let me say this, maybe as Americans, we're sort of indoctrinated with this idea that, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's sort of the American story, right? You take control of your destiny. You go out there and work as hard as you can, and then you'll achieve success, et cetera. And obviously, I mean, that's not the case. You and I both know that frequently teamwork is essential. And being able to find the right team and know how to get the most out of that team is an absolutely essential skill. But as I was saying before, it's not something that we teach in law school. And I think that sort of American ethos is just magnified by the way that we train lawyers. We teach them to come out of there feeling like young masters of the universe. You go out, work as hard as you can, and you will conquer the world. And part of that's a good thing, right? We want lawyers to come out with confidence. It's an adversarial profession, and you've got to be able to go out there and deal with opposing counsel, deal with courts, deal with potentially difficult clients from a position of authority. And frequently, when you're at the settlement negotiation table, for example, even if you're not the smartest guy in the room and know everything and are completely prepared, you certainly have to appear that way. Right. So that's how we send them out into the world. And, directly related to that, perhaps, or perhaps related to the way that we train law professors in this country, we don't teach management in law school at all. I mean, we don't teach really just a ton of business skills in particular. Some law schools have practice management courses that you can take, but it's very rare. And we certainly don't teach how to find the right people to hire, how to train them, and all that kind of thing. And so, ever since the housing crisis in 2008, more and more lawyers who graduate are going out and starting their own firms than ever before. And that trend has just continued. And then I think everything's magnified even more, right? Because suddenly your money and your reputation are directly on the line. You're not a salaried employee of Boyd Schiller that has millions and millions of dollars. You've
Right.
got your own shingle out there. And so the temptation is even greater to do everything yourself and have the buck stop with you.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe you can see kind of where that begins to, where a lot of those problems and sort of that negative view of lawyer as a profession starts. I mean, we hear these stats all the time about how lawyers are some of the most unhappy people. Just, depression rates are high, suicide rates are high, stuff like that. And I think this is a big area where a lot of that starts, is that feeling that you have to do everything yourself because there's, like you said, there's that pressure that's on the line where it's your money, your name, and all of that. And so delegating, I think, is an easy way to sort of alleviate a lot of that. And we've kind of mentioned it before, with the bookkeeping, the marketing, stuff like that. What are some other things that lawyers can and should be delegating?
Well, so let me go back to the point you just made about stress first, right? I mean,
Right.
and I want to talk just for a second about some of the consequences of this culture of non-delegation. Now, we do see lawyers are increasingly understanding and willing to do things like go and find a marketing partner, right? Because, at the very least, there's enough self-awareness to know I don't know how to shoot my own TV spots, right? Or I don't know how to build a website, et cetera.
Right.
It's different with drafting pleadings, drafting discovery requests and motions, because we do train them to do that, right? So it's very tempting to keep that and do it yourself, especially when you're paying marketing firms and so on to help you. But the consequences, I like to think about this in terms of the big three goals for any person that's out there in the business world: get money, and keep your sanity, right?
Right.
So if you don't delegate, you're doing all the work yourself. Your ability to get money is hampered because every hour you spend drafting a discovery motion is an hour you could be spending bringing in a new client to the firm or forming a new referral relationship with another firm, right?
Yeah.
Keeping money becomes more difficult too, or at least is hampered, because client relationships have to be nurtured. If you want repeat business from, let's say you've got a corporate client, right, and you're starting off with one case for them, and what you want is to eventually get a big chunk of their business, it takes time to build that relationship. And if you're doing everything yourself, working until midnight every night, drafting everything, you don't have time to do that. So that's a consequence too. But the stress is an important one, right? So keeping sanity, and I don't think that we think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like that culture of the sort of master of the universe mentality that we drill into these law students when they come out, they feel like they're not supposed to feel stress. But you're right. The legal profession has endemic stress-related problems. Lawyers are 3.6 times more likely to be depressed than the general population. 20% of lawyers experience symptoms of serious anxiety. And that's from an ABA and Betty Ford study that was in 2016. I mean, this is recent. And imagine what the pandemic's doing to that, right? I mean, you're worried about potential loss of business, you're quarantined. It's just, all that stuff is magnified. And the problems with problem drinking and substance abuse in the legal community are also well documented. And those are, at least many times, at least largely stress related. And delegating is a simple way to reduce your stress, reduce your workload, and find more of that work-life balance, even if you do have your own firm where it may seem like you signed work-life balance away on the dotted line when you opened your doors.
Yeah.
So to get back to your question about what folks should delegate, on the stress point, right, one thing that's important to remember is not all delegating is created equal. And this is the part where it's a learned skill, right? Because, I mean, you can't just hire anybody off the street and hand them a case and say, yeah, you know what I'm saying. I mean, you've got to have the right people. Otherwise, all you're going to do is redo all the work yourself, right? And create more stress, because then you have to be concerned about what the other person is doing, et cetera. So step one to good effective delegating strategy is to be sure you have the right people, right? But once you've figured that out, once you have good employees or independent contractors that you work with who you trust to do this work well, and once you have a process in place for being sure that you review their work and are satisfied with it before you file it or give it to the client or whatever, then the question is, what do you give them to do? And really the answer is whatever you want to. Keep what you like doing, delegate what you don't, right? Or, similarly phrased, keep what you have time to do and get rid of the stuff you don't have time to do. I talk to lawyers and law students too about this all the time, right? Work-life balance, much like delegation, is a learned skill. It's a behavior that you have to work on. So when I say delegate what you don't have time to do, set an actual time when you're going to stop working each day, right? I mean, for 8 p.m. for the workaholics, maybe 5 p.m. for the slightly less workaholic out there, etc. And treat your time as a commodity, whether it's time you could spend building up your book of business, bringing in new clients. It's a commodity in that way, but it's also a commodity in the sense of keeping your sanity, right? Downtime is just as important as work time. And athletes will tell you this, recovery time is just as important as active time to having a good performance.
Yeah.
If you find yourself with too many cases suddenly, right? Maybe you've stumbled on an embarrassment of riches, then, you can delegate your flat fee cases, you can delegate your hours capped cases, and focus on the cases where you can bill at your full rate and make more money, right? So you can be sort of strategic with your revenue in that way. But in terms of specific things that you can delegate out, I mean, give a couple of examples, but the answer really is the sky's the limit if you have the right people. You can delegate new client intake. You can delegate initial case evaluation and the preparation of, the first page of a case file. You can delegate discovery, both written discovery and document review. I think a lot of folks are familiar with that. You can delegate ongoing litigation case management, research, drafting, hearing coverage. All of these things, there are professionals out there who can do these things for you and do a good job. Really, I mean, the limit is only the limit of your imagination.
Yeah. And to kind of go back, I think a lot of attorneys, almost maybe don't even consider kind of a compromise in between. It's like, well, I need to either hire someone or I have to do it all myself. And what you do and Denovo does is you kind of have that nice middle ground there where you're not paying a full salary for, having an employee on staff, and then you've got to manage, potentially HR kind of stuff on top of having people in office. So there are some benefits there to delegating that kind of stuff as well. One of the other things that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting was that you talk about, attorneys getting a ton of cases all of a sudden, and to kind of tie it into marketing a little bit, what we see a lot of is attorneys will get a ton of cases and then they'll be like, all right, I'm going to pause my marketing. Mm-hmm. Just so I can focus on this. I can't take any more cases right now. We hear that a lot. It's like, I've got more work than I know what to do with. And then all of a sudden they get done with that work and they don't have anything else coming in. And you get these crazy peaks and valleys that then in turn adds to that stress and a lot of the negative issues. And it's just really interesting to see how those waves play out. The other thing is one of the things that we kind of focus on, especially with our messaging, is that delegating gives you the opportunity to focus on the things that you actually enjoy doing. So, if you don't like doing some of the transactional stuff and you really focus on whether you're going to court or, a specific aspect of a case, that's where stuff, delegating comes into play. Are there any other sort of outside benefits that you can think of that you tell your clients that delegating a lot of the legal work brings?
Well, you mentioned a great one, and that is planning. right? And so when I talk about scaling, it's exactly what you just mentioned, right? Smart scaling means that you prepare for the volume that you're going to get from your campaigns, and you prepare in a way that you don't have to pause your campaigns, but you can handle that volume by getting a staffing plan in place to handle that volume. Right now, that's sort of a sophisticated example of delegation, but it's definitely one of the things that once you get good at this, it's a huge added benefit, right? You can really pump your revenue up into the revenue of a high volume practice if you have good marketing partners and have a good staffing plan to handle the influx of cases so that you're not having to, pause and potentially miss out on opportunities. The other thing I'll mention related to that is, leaving aside the marketing, because of the pandemic, all kinds of stay orders have been entered in large pieces of litigation around the country. So mass tort lawyers, a bunch of their actions have been stayed, mass actions, class actions, etc. Courts haven't really been moving cases along. And now that everybody's starting to get vaccinated, those stays are starting to be lifted. So people are coming to me and saying, this was sort of a surprise that the stay was lifted when it was. And now I've got to do all this work right away because these cases are going to start moving quickly down the pike. And it's sort of the perfect storm because of the constriction of business during the pandemic. A lot of people laid off staff, or stopped working with independent contractors they were working with before. And so now the time it takes to scale back up to handle that work is putting you sort of behind the eight ball in two different ways. So, I mean, it's being able to plan to make your marketing investment actually a smart investment, so you're not wasting marketing dollars on the one hand, and also being able to have the flexibility to adapt to sudden changes in your business, like the lifting of all these stays. Those are important benefits.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a good transition here into one of our final questions here, whether you've got some stays being lifted and you're facing a ton of legal work, or maybe you're just kind of bogged down in a bunch of stuff that you're not really passionate about, but you need to get done in order to do the things you like to do. Talk for a few minutes about how just Denovo Review can help with those things.
Well, we take the guesswork out of finding the right people. So when I was talking before about how important that is, I want to emphasize that again, because to make delegation work for you, especially on the stress point, you need to be able to hand things off and feel confident that what you're going to get back is a high quality product that you're not going to have to spend hours and hours redoing. All right. So we go out and vet the independent contractor attorneys and paralegals and legal assistants and call team members, whatever, that are out there in the universe, and have a sort of curated bench of these folks that we can bring in to staff everything from short and long-term projects to a monthly, month in, month out engagement for a large scale project, even permanent positions. So we use a variety of sort of human intelligence techniques to be sure that we find people who, once we match them up with you and they start working on your project, you can have that peace of mind that you're not going to have to redo everything yourself. And we're really good at it. We've been doing it for years, and we're especially good at finding people for projects that require sort of specialized expertise. So some firms during the pandemic have been looking to kind of hedge their revenue by branching out into areas of practice that they do not normally do, right? So if you're a personal injury firm and you want a counter-cyclical practice area, you might want to take on bankruptcy cases, right? So, that's a situation where, you need to come to us and we can find you bankruptcy attorneys who, like you said, will... You won't be paying what you would pay a direct employee. You don't have to manage their HR. You don't have to run their payroll. You don't have to provide office space and equipment, et cetera. Yeah. And your general managerial workload is less because of those diminished overhead costs. Yep. So What we like to say is that we're not like a traditional staffing company or some kind of a share economy marketplace. We've got business advisors, right? So there's those skills they don't teach in law school: management skills, business skills, etc. Our business advisors come in, consult with you, and help you figure out how you want to scale up. Do you need a team of 5 full-time attorneys to take on mass tort work that suddenly you have to do because the stay was lifted? Do you need a team of 3 bankruptcy attorneys because you've got great referral partners who are willing to send you a bunch of bankruptcy cases, but you have no employees who can handle them, etc.? So we come in and help you do that planning and help you figure out what kind of delegation you need. We can help you overcome some of the internal obstacles to delegation that you might have too, right? We can help you become comfortable with that. And we're constantly there. We're hands-on to be sure that you're satisfied with the team, and that's sort of what we pride ourselves on doing, is finding the absolutely right people.
Awesome. And how can people get in touch with you guys to see if you're a good fit?
Well, you can check us out at www.denovoreview.com, or you can email me. It's Garrick, Garrick, at denovoreview.com. You can give us a call at 305-925-0229. My personal extension is 710 if you want to get a hold of me, and we'll be happy to discuss what you need and be helpful.
Awesome. And all of that info, I'll have that in the show notes, so you can definitely check it out there. Garrick, this has been fantastic. Love all the information. And so we'll wrap it up here. If you had one piece of advice for all of the attorneys out there, what would it be?
Take stress seriously. Okay. That means as a law teacher, and someone who has practiced law in a high sort of stress law firm, and has clerked for federal judges and has seen students that I graduated from law school go out into the world, we don't take it seriously enough. We think, more work is the solution, right? If I'm stressed out because of deadlines or whatever, I am inclined to think I just need to work harder. But what happens is, the more you overwork yourself, the more likely it is at some point that you're going to burn out. You're going to become more prone to miss details, miss deadlines, forget to return that call to the potential client that could be a huge case. And in the long term, your health and your business will suffer, right? So some people think stress is for the weak, or stress doesn't really exist or whatever. But I'm here to tell you, it's a thing. And we don't do a good enough job in law school of preparing young lawyers to recognize the symptoms of stress and a bad work-life balance, much less equip them with the tools to be able to delegate and manage their way sort of around those problems, right? So that's maybe it's the fact that I'm in my mid-40s now, right? I just feel a little bit more like a sort of fatherly figure than I did when I was a young lawyer, young professor, but I wag my finger about this all the time, right? I mean, you've got to take your own health and self-care, to use a current popular term, seriously, or in the long term, your clients will suffer, your family will suffer, and your business will suffer.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. That's awesome. Well, Garrick, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, everyone out there, for continuing to listen, watch, wherever you're consuming the show. Continue to review. Let us know topics that you would like to hear about in the future. I'm always excited to hear the feedback. That's going to do it for us this week on Center Stage. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Garrick, see you later.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.